What a crazy offseason we're having already in the NFL and college football. Uh, the Brendan Sorsby story takes center stage yet again. It just seems like this story won't end. So now, Sorsby, as you are probably well aware, will not be in the supplemental draft. There will be no supplemental draft. And he will miss the year, which I think is a good thing. I think players like this is what I said about Rashee Rice. Players like this that get in trouble and need some help need to be punished accordingly, especially players that are talented like Rice and Sorsby. They're so talented that even if they miss a year, they're going to be fined. They're going to make a lot of money compared to regular people, whether even it's a couple of $1,000,000 here or there, still a lot more money. And I get it. You only have a certain amount of business span in the NFL before you have to retire, but still, you should be able to save that money. Also do a good job. Now, tell you the truth, one of the reasons why you're supposed to be in college in the first place is to have a degree. And the good thing about NIL is that, or one of the good things is you make more money, and that allows you more time to stay in college to get your degree. So the way things are right now in the NFL and college football, there really should be no excuse for a player, or at least a player that is supposed to have a long career. Because look, I don't know if Sorsby is going to be a long-time starter or a backup, but he's talented enough to at least play in this league for a while. He should earn a good amount of money, whether he's a quality backup or a starter for the next 10 or 15 years. And so I think it's important at that age to make sure you can do your best to teach these kids right and wrong, and to give them the penalty that's not too severe, but just severe enough. And this whole Sorsby thing, I think, is laying out perfectly. Now, Mike Florio had an interesting take. We're going to be, if you're going to be joining us here for our coverage, college football coverage, we're going to be talking Memphis football and Georgia Tech football. Okay, so a little AAC and ACC talk coming up here in just a few minutes, starting with our Memphis interview with Frank Bonner. We've never interviewed Frank before, and I love saying that. And I know we're going to say that a lot more the rest of this summer. The more new analysts that we interview here on the Ourlads Football Network, the better for us and the better for you. Okay, let's see what he had to say.
When you take a step back and look at what happened to Brendan Sorsby, his behavior is a product of 8 years of bombarding young men, particularly with advertisements to gamble. Everywhere you look, sponsored by DraftKings, sponsored by FanDuel, sponsored by BetMGM, sponsored by this one, sponsored by that one. And it's not just the ads that you see. I mean, think about it. It's three ways. One, the ads are everywhere. Two, the shows, the content is sponsored. The logo's always there on the shows that these kids watch. And you periodically have the voices that you have come to know and like and trust telling you what bets to make. How do you expect these kids to not eat from the forbidden fruit?
Really, that's all I need to hear from Mike. He makes a point that I know a lot of people are probably going to make: the hypocrisy of the NFL, the gambling advertisements. And as Mike just said, how can you not expect the player to eat the forbidden fruit? You know what's so awesome about living in North Carolina is being able to watch deer just walk by my window. We've had more deer in my neighborhood here. And when I say neighborhood, I'm talking about, my neighbor is probably like, I don't know, 3 or 4 blocks away. And I can't even see him because I got trees. Oh, there's another deer. Really, really is deer season or something. Anyway, so about the forbidden fruit, no, I'm sorry, Mike, you lost me on that because, and I don't need to have Mike's picture up here anymore. You should be smart enough as a kid with everything. You've got everything ahead for you. Now, if I'm Brandon Sorsby and I'm whatever he was, a freshman, I'm a young kid. I'm a backup quarterback with a Division I Power 4 school. And considering how good he is now, I have to assume that he knew how good he was. I mean, you have to have that feeling. You have to have that confidence. There's no way you're going to make it the way Brendan Sorsby did a couple of years later without the confidence that, hey, I'm going to get there. I'm going to be really good. I'm going to make a lot of money in the NFL. And you gamble when you know exactly what will happen to you. And Mike wants to blame advertisements? Like if ESPN or the NFL Network didn't advertise, Brendan Sorsby wouldn't have any idea where to go gamble? Look, I don't know how it is to be in Brendan or a lot of kids that are growing up today with the easy access to gambling. I've been gambling since I was a teenager. My father would take me every other week to the Meadowlands to watch harness racing. Of course, I didn't have any money, but hey, what do you want, son? I'll take whatever. I'll take the horse that I like the name of, the 4-horse, whatever. So I've been gambling for a long time. And it wasn't accessible back then. So it wasn't that easy. I had to go. If I had to really gamble, I had to go to a bookie to gamble. And so really the only other gambling I did were on those little cards you used to do. I don't know if you remember those cards, you used to get my father used to come home, work. They used to have these football cards. He used to give me like 3 or 4 of them. And I used to fill out the cards and that's it. That's how you gambled. That's how I gambled. So it really didn't happen easily for me for a while until the internet boom, really, until it all started. So I can't say I understand what Sorsby was going through or kids like that, but I do have to just say, and we'll talk more about this during the summer. We've got a lot of other guests. I'm sure we're going to talk to someone representing the Indiana football team, hopefully real soon. More than enough time to talk about this, but I just wanted to just get that in because, again, I know this is going to be thrown about quite a bit. This excuse is, well, this hypocrisy by the NFL, and I just think this is just too much. We do this too much. We try to give the guilty people in this country, and I don't want to get political, but the guilty people in this country a free ride. Oh, it's not their fault. It's their upbringing. It's the gambling is too accessible. It's this, that, or the other thing. It's never their fault, which is why, again, I think it's great that Sorsby is going to be out for a year. I think it's awesome because he'll learn his lesson. And you know who else will learn their lesson? Anybody else that comes after him. Because if you're stupid enough to gamble now, after what's going on with Brendan Sorsby, then I'm sorry, but if I'm somebody that's a general manager in the NFL and I'm drafting these kids and I'm deciding whether or not I want them in my locker room, I don't think I want a kid like that in my locker room. They can't figure these things out. So anyway, we'll talk more about that in the coming months. And all I know is once this dies down, nobody will be talking about Brendan Sorsby until after the season. And then we start talking about the 2027 NFL draft, which we'll do a lot of right here on the Ourlads football channel. Ourlads draft guide, by the way, is available right now. Check out the link in the description of this video. You can also check out the link in the description of this video for our guest who is coming on right now to talk Memphis Tigers football from the AAC and I'm going to welcome Frank Bonner to the program for the first time. Frank, very nice to meet you, and thank you very much for doing this.
I appreciate you having me on. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, especially I get an opportunity to talk about a group of 5 team, and I know I don't get that chance very often. And I want to make sure when I do have group of 5 guests on that we get on, a select number that are tied to programs that I'm very intrigued by. And Memphis is definitely one of them, as one of the top teams in the Atlantic for several years. And I believe right now they are considered even though they're considered the 5th choice as far as Vegas is concerned, they are pretty much tied for 3rd. Just a couple of spots down with Navy as the preseason favorite, according to Las Vegas. But a major turnover for the program this year. Have you ever seen anything? I know the answer, but have you ever seen anything like this turnover with the football program this year?
To be honest with you, man, it's almost not necessarily to this standard, but high turnover is almost becoming the norm around the country now, it seems like. And then when you add in the fact that Memphis had a coaching change, it was to be expected, right? You get some guys who follow suit field to Arkansas. You get other guys who went to the portal to see other programs that they're able to go to. Huff brings in some of his own guys from Southern Miss, and then he goes out in the transfer portal and brings in some firepower where positions are needed. So, last year they had a pretty new roster, and this year it's even newer. So you're starting to see a trend and getting used to it in this day and age in college football for sure.
Yeah, especially the idea of hiring a coach when you know that, hey, you know what? Not only am I going to get this coach, but that first year is not going to be as bad as we thought, because he's going to bring a lot of players with him from the team that he's on. And we take a look at this situation here on the depth chart. So all the players that are, we call it the gold color, all the players in gold are all portal players. It is, again, this is one of the biggest roster changeovers in all of college football. I've been doing interviews for a few months. I've been looking at a lot of depth charts, and this is like the 99th percentile as far as roster turnover in the portal. So let's start on offense, first of all, especially at quarterback, Frank, because that's the main position, and they don't have any experience there with these 3 quarterbacks. So did you learn anything in the spring? Has anybody taken the lead, or is it a 2 or a 3-man race?
Yeah, right. So through the spring, it looks like the main competition obviously is between Stokes and Nolan, right? Those are the 2 guys that are going to be the 2 names out of the hat that are going to be pulled, so to speak, right? And if you're asking me, I always lean more toward the guy who has the experience. Now, like Marcus Stokes, he doesn't necessarily have D1 experience, but he was the guy at a Division II program. And so he was able to still lead a college locker room. You saw what he was able to do as the starter. And so I felt that he came in to spring already kind of having a leg up, just on the simple fact that he has the game reps that Aaron Nolan doesn't necessarily have.
Okay, so Stokes, how many years was he a starter in Division II?
2.
2 years. Okay. And Nolan, what was Nolan a 4-star?
Yeah, they both were.
Oh, okay. And Nolan, of course, played again with the bigger programs the first couple of years, even though he didn't play a whole lot. As you can see here, only 3 attempts with the 2 teams and of course, Ohio State, South Carolina compared to a Division II team. But like you said, that's, I guess, the interesting thing about the battle is that Nolan, people might look and say, oh, it's got to be Nolan. I mean, look, he's an FBS guy. Look at the programs he played at. Stokes is Division II guy. But you think that since this is going to be the battle, your guess at this early stages is you think Stokes is going to end up winning it, or you just think Stokes has the lead going into training camp?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to say who was, I would say Stokes.
Okay. What does he bring to what do both quarterbacks bring to the table? Like, does one quarterback versus the other have, an edge, arm strength, athleticism, accuracy, anything like that?
Well, they both, I will say this. I mean, Charles Huff did a good job of recruiting a style of quarterback that he wants, right? He doesn't necessarily need a Lamar Jackson back there, right? But he does want somebody who's able to move in the pocket, mobile, who can scramble and use his legs when a play breaks down, right? These are some of the things he said, and both of these guys can do that, right? If you look at the film of Stokes, there's a play that he has on film that I talk about a lot, where he's rolling, scrambling to his left. And while on the move, he throws this deep ball like right on target, which is hard to do for a quarterback,
Sure.
right? And so when you see plays like that from a guy like Stokes, you do get excited about what the possibilities can be if he ends up being the starter.
Okay. All right. So running back, and none of these guys, matter of fact, most of the skill position players, the portal players that I just want to talk about so far, I looked here and I didn't see, I only saw like two players that really stood out statistically between the receivers, the tight ends, and the running backs. Hunter Tipton, the tight end out of Middle Tennessee, who followed Huff. A lot of guys following Huff. Actually, that was at Middle Tennessee. He was one of the guys that didn't follow Huff. But
Right.
Then you got Chapman, the wide receiver, who did follow him from Southern Miss. He had some decent numbers, and Tipton had some decent numbers, but that's about it. I really didn't see any big numbers from the running backs. So there's a lot of unproven production out of these skill position players. So who should we be keeping an eye on the most?
Yeah, right. To your point, right. There's a lot of opportunity for position battles. There's position battles all over the place, right? But as far as skill, let's start with the running backs, right? I think the three names that you're going to hear at running back, right? Jalen Carter, Manny Colvey, and Dallin Hayden, right? Those are going to be the three guys. I had asked Huff during the spring, like, how does he like to use his running backs, right? And he said he would like to have, at least a solid three that he knows he will have for the season, because attrition goes in and so on. And so I think those will be your solid three. If I had to guess who would be RB1 right now, right? I would lean toward Jalen Carter, who Huff obviously is familiar with. But I think those three guys are going to be the names that you hear for the running back position.
Okay. As I mentioned, at tight end, Tipton, big numbers for a tight end at Middle Tennessee. He was 39 receptions, 411 yards, a couple of scores. So he definitely sticks out to me. Is he going to be a big part of the offense, you think?
Yeah. I think like he is my starting tight end on my projection, right? And think about Hunter Tipton, right? When you see him in spring, we get to see a little bit of practice in spring, right? When you see him, his build is he looks like a big bodied receiver, right? And so in terms of just his build, so him being at tight end, he's definitely a tight end that you expect to be able to move well on the field. Just looking at just his build and the way he lines up out there on the field. So I do expect him to be that guy at the tight end spot for sure. It was a big get from Middle Tennessee for them.
Okay, and then that wide receiver, again, I mentioned Chapman, 5'9" receiver from Southern Miss. He put up some decent numbers last year, including almost 18 yards per reception. But everything else is kind of wide open. And it's interesting that one of the very few players that were holdovers, which is the receiver Brady Cluse, and he put up not big numbers, but he had some production. But it's always interesting when you see so many portal players, and then there's like one or two guys that remained, and you wonder, okay, well, what made them stay? What was the reason that they ended up as the lone holdover? But anyway, talk about the receivers, both Cluse and the portal players.
Yeah, right. And so Cluse is a guy that you saw flashes of as a freshman. When he was a true freshman, he got some cock, and you saw him. He made some. He had like a couple one-handed catches last season and so on. And so I do think that he will have a role in this offense. But as far as the main guys to look at, right? You already mentioned Chapman. I would look at Terrell Timmons, right? Jameer Davis and Alante Brown, I think, is a name that to keep an eye on. Just his speed, right?
Okay.
When you look at the offense and you hear Decker talk about the offense and they're going to spread out wide and so on, I think Alante Brown's speed could be a nice fit in this offense, right? And so he's a guy who I also expect to contend for one of those starting receiver spots for sure.
Okay. And at wide receiver, is it really wide open, or do you think one or two players has the leg up as far as being a starter?
Right now, I think receiver is pretty wide open, right? Uh, I mean, I think Chapman, we can say he's a starter. Uh, I think Terrell Timmons and and the probably feeling right now.
Yeah, I lost you there. Say that again.
Oh,
Yeah, I lost your
I'm not
connection
sure.
there, Frank.
Oh, okay, you got me now.
Yeah, I got you now.
I said, yeah. If I'm trying to do a lineup of receiver, right? I think Chapman will be there.
Okay.
I think Timmons will be there, and then I think that the other starting receiver, at least for me, I would put Davis and Brown. One of those two guys for those spotting those top three receivers.
Okay. Coming from Kansas State and Michigan State. So they're coming from big programs. All right. How's the offensive line looking? The all important offensive line. It looks like there might be some decent upperclassmen, a lot of upperclassmen, matter of fact, a lot of seniors on the two deep of the offensive line. So that's smart.
Yeah, right. And I think to your point, the offensive line, you want it to be as experienced as possible in terms of the veterans, just because that offensive line. I mean, just as much as everybody else how important the offensive line is to the operation of the offense, right? And I think the offensive line, to be honest with you, the offensive line is probably one of the more comfortable positions I feel like projecting right now, in terms of who I think is going to be starters, right? I think you have Riley McGahee over at left tackle, Parker Mitchell at guard. I think Philip Gray at center. I think Philip Gray will be at center. I wouldn't be surprised if Kobe Keenum, took that center spot too, but it'd be one of those two guys. But I think Philip Gray, I'm gonna butcher his name, Martin Woodsma, at the other guard, and I think Aaron over at the other tackle. I feel pretty solid about who I feel is going to be the starters on that O-line.
Okay, now let's move on to the defensive side. And again, all portal players. It looks like potentially there were a few holdovers from last year's team sprinkled in there. But taking a look at some of the top players, looks like the kid, that a couple of the guys that stick out. One of them that really sticks out is the edge rusher Tap.
Yeah, I think Tap was when you talk about guys that Huff brought over. I mean, the two guys that you hear about the most, right, are Jermon Tap and Ian Foster over in the secondary. Jermon Tap obviously is going to be a starter, right? I think he's going to be the star of that defensive line. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be one of the anchors of the defense, I believe, right? And then I think Taylor Burton, you talk about not having too many holdovers or returners, right? I think Taylor Burton is a guy who can have that get a starting position on the D line. I think Elijah Kinsler, right? And I would say Jaden McKinney would be my projected starters over there on the D line.
Okay. And you mentioned the secondary with Foster, and there are actually 3 Fosters in the secondary. Are any of them related?
Yeah, Amir and Ian.
Okay. And
then
And you said, who's the one that sticks out? Would that be Ian?
Yes. I think he is at that nickel spot. I think he's the guy, right? I think, because Gertie's they're bringing a 4-2-5 defense, which is different than the 3-3 that the previous regime ran, right? I think Ian was going to be that nickel hybrid defensive back. He's a star. I think he's going to be a stud of that secondary, right? And then you've got Chauncey Logan and Ellis Jr. for the cornerbacks. For safety, I think the other Foster, Amir, and Dylan Smith at the other safety spot, I believe, is going to be those starters.
Okay, so on defense, though, you say Ian Foster and Tapp. Those are going to be like the two highlight guys.
I do. Yeah, I think Tapp and Ian Foster are going to be the studs of the defense. I do believe that.
How's the linebacking unit? Looks like they're bringing in this kid Montgomery. Mike Montgomery had a pretty good season last season.
Yeah, Mike Montgomery is another huge, person who followed Huff from Southern Miss. He's obviously going to be a starter. And think about Mike Montgomery, right? You hear Huff talk about Mike Montgomery. His work ethic is contagious. It's been contagious in the spring to other linebackers. He's the guy who comes in early, gets extra work, and some of the other people in the linebacker room have seen that, and now they're coming in early with him. And so he's a guy who you need to have in your locker room, not just because of the talent that he is, but the show by example work ethic that he's helping create in that locker room, I think, is huge. So not only will he be instrumental on the field, but I think he'll be instrumental as one of the leaders in the locker room as well.
Okay. And have you heard anything at all about special teams? Most importantly, the kicking jobs, anything at all, or is it way too early?
I think Harrison Tuck will be the punter, right? And then obviously for kicker, it's between, Oliver and Felipe. I would lean toward Felipe probably, but I don't know. Harrison Tuck, I'm pretty confident on punter. The kicker is going to be between Oliver and Felipe.
Okay.
But the other linebacker alongside Montgomery, I think, is going to be Parrish.
Oh, okay. Jaden Parrish. Okay. From Florida State. Okay. Yeah, this is the thing that we're seeing now more and more with the portal is that we're seeing all these players, like I've already named, Michigan State and, Florida State. We're seeing these kids come from the big schools that don't have any production, but they were still good players coming out of high school. And instead of waiting and sitting on the bench for, say, a year or another year, no, I can go and head on over to Memphis or what have you, and maybe even make a little bit of money and then get an opportunity to start or a much better opportunity to start. So that's especially when you're going from power 4 to group of 5. So even though there's a lot of players that I've looked at on this roster that just do not have any production whatsoever yet in college, that does not mean that they're not more than capable of having really good first seasons, especially since they're coming from Power 4 schools.
Yeah, and I think that's when you're a non-power conference school and you're trying to catch fire in the portal, you have to find those guys, right, who you still see talent in, but for whatever reason, they just had too many guys in front of them or what have you at the power conference schools, and you bring them over and they can get a chance to start now. I mean, I think that's how you kind of stay alive in the portal as a group of 5 or group of 6 school, whatever we're calling it now.
Yep. All right. So let's see. Let's take a look at first of all, let's pop up the conference odds. Again, Navy, the preseason favorites. How about that? Navy, the preseason favorites of what is considered to be the top conference in the group of 5. Texas San Antonio looks like they're making a comeback after a couple of mediocre seasons. And there's another service academy. Army is supposed to have another good season. There's the usual Tulane and Memphis. And East Carolina looks like they're starting to get better and better. There's South Florida as well. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 7 teams really according to Vegas, fighting it out for the top spot, the top 2 spots in the conference. And then you've got the long shots below them. So as far as those other 6, what do you think about the? Do you know enough yet, or is it too early that you have a feeling regarding Memphis's top competitors this season?
Well, I think if you look at all the projections of the conference, right, I think it's an example of just how each team has its own version of their unknowns, right? I mean, there's a few programs in this conference who have first-year head coaches alongside Memphis, right? And so just there's a lot of turnover in a lot of different areas. And so honestly, it's hard for me to really project who's expected to be the top dog. I mean, you look at Navy lost a lot of talent too from last year, right? Horvath and those guys. And so a lot of these rosters in this conference are so new. I do expect Memphis to be in contention. If you look at the resources and their ability to bring in the talent that they did bring in the portal, I do believe that there's no reason to think that Memphis shouldn't be a top 3, top 4 program, if not be one of the top 2 competing in the championship game, right? Just on the mere fact that they have the resources to bring in the talent that they have. Yep. And Charles Huff's track record should believe that he'll be having this program ready to compete in year 1. But as far as, how they stack up against other teams like Tulane, who's also had a coaching turnover, Army and Navy, it's really just too early to tell. I think we'll know more once fall camp happens. But this conference is purely wide open.
Yeah, Memphis has got all that FedEx money, and they're going to use that as best they can to their advantage. Okay, so let's take a look at the schedule. And really the thing I noticed about the schedule is that they have several really tough games on the road. So they get the Boise State game, the big non-conference matchup at Boise. And then when you take a look at conference, they got to go at Tulane, at South Florida, at Navy. And again, those are all the teams that are predicted to be in the top part of the conference at this point in time. And that does not also include the fact that they got the home game with Army and East Carolina. So looks like a pretty tough.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say, you can't forget that the season opener at UNLV is a tough one, just right out the gate.
Good point. Yes, on the road. Yeah. So that's a tough schedule.
Yeah, and I will say, right, you want to know how Memphis is going to be able to compete. Well, you'll find out in these 2 of these first 3 games, right? At UNLV, at Boise State. I mean, these are 2 programs that are also looking to win their conferences and compete for that group of 5 or group of 6 spot or whatever in the playoff, right? And so you'll know right out the gate how Memphis stacks up against some of the other non-power conference schools, not just in the conference, but UNLV and Boise, they're expected to be right there too. So I think that's a early, right out the gate test to see just what this roster actually can do.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good idea if these group of 5 teams or whatever they're going to call it, because I agree with you, but how they're going, like I'd love to see them put together these really nice early season non-conference matchups. Because that's going to really depend. That's what we're going to determine. Make things a lot easier, so you're not left up to computer rankings and things of that nature. Everybody should want to be, hey, you know what? If we're not going to make it, then we're not going to make it because we played a really good team and we lost to them. Fine, I'll live with that. I just don't want to live with arguing that we were shut out of going to a playoff because such and such team had a better computer number than we did.
Yeah, and you got to remember the reason why UNLV is on the schedule in the first place is because Memphis was supposed to play at Arkansas, but because the SEC did their scheduling tweak, Arkansas had to drop Memphis off their non-conference schedule. And so then they end up adding UNLV. And so, they were supposed to be playing, because they played Arkansas at home last year and beat them.
That's right.
And they were supposed to go to Arkansas.
Home and home. Yeah.
Yeah. So, adding when you're looking at what other Group of Five school you could have added, especially at that time, I think adding UNLV that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, and it's a benefit to us as the fans because that's what we want to see. Okay, so then let's take a look at the win total for Memphis. Let's see, it's 7.5. So I'm going to go ahead and put it up here. So what do you think about 7.5 for their win total based on the schedule? I know it's early, and I'm sure you'll have your final prediction sometime in August. But right now, if you had to just come up with your best guesstimation, do you think they're an 8-win team or an 8-win team or more, or a 7-win team or less?
I'm going to say an 8-win. I'm going to go with 8 because
wins.
I believe at worst they're going to split UNLV and Boise, right?
Okay.
I think they're going to beat Arkansas State. They're going to beat UT Martin, Charlotte, UAB. And so I think they can get 8 wins. I don't think 7.5. That being the line, I think that's a pretty good line. But I think they'll be over that.
Yeah, because 7-5 season, that's not what they're looking for. 8-4 with that schedule, that's okay. That's not bad. That's decent with that schedule. And obviously, maybe there's even more to come, and a lot's going to depend, as we all know, every year on the quarterback situation. And I guess we'll find out real early, like you said. We might find out even in game 1 whether or not Memphis has got the type of quarterback play that could elevate them in big games.
Yeah, to your point, in college football, a lot of it does ride on how well your quarterback can play and how consistent your QB can play. And if you have consistent play at QB, maybe you can win some games that you probably even shouldn't have, right?
That's correct. They can steal wins, no question. And we'll see if Marcus Stokes gets the job. And if he does, then we'll see how things go. Because Charles Huff, we didn't really talk too much about him, but Huff is the new head coach, comes over from Southern Miss. Was at Marshall for 4 years. So he's on his 3rd team in 3 years. What do you think about Huff? What does Huff bring to the table? Why has he been successful at both of his stops?
Well, I think for starters, I think he knows how to maximize his rosters, right? And so that's what I'm excited about most. Is like this is a school that he's had the most resources at, right? It's tough to win at Southern Miss. It's tough to win at Marshall, and he's been able to do it. And so now that he has these resources, how does he handle that? How does he maximize the roster when he has more resources than he ever has? And I think when you listen to him speak, it's easy for a locker room to get behind him, right? It's easy for a locker room to believe the message and the vision that he's telling to the guys. I think a coach has to be able to get the locker room to trust in your vision. And when you hear him, just even in his interviews, when you have one-on-ones with him and you hear him talk, I think it's easy to understand why a guy like Jamon Tapp follows him to Memphis, or a guy like Ian Foster follows him, right? And so when you have that, players will run through a wall for you when they believe in you enough. And I think he is a coach who can get his players to believe in him to the end of the world.
Is there a specific type of style that he prefers? Is he like a conservative coach? Is he a smash mouth, I want to run the ball, play defense coach? Does he want to air it out? What do you notice about a Charles Huff coach team that Memphis fans are going to be getting?
Huff wants to play fast offensively. He said,
okay.
I'll tell you, he said, this is what he said even in his introductory press conference. He said, we're going to snap the ball as fast as humanly possible. And so he is a coach who he wants that offense to play fast. And then one little caveat I thought was interesting about Huff is Huff doesn't burn timeouts in the first half. He doesn't waste them. He said, or on offense, right? Because he said, if you have a delay of game on offense, you lose 5 yards.
Yeah.
He said, if you're not lined up correctly on defense and you don't burn a timeout, you can give up 6 points.
I like
And
that.
so he likes to save his timeouts for the defensive side of the ball as opposed to the offense. Now, obviously, second half, time of possession, all that stuff changes. But he said his general rule is he prefers not to burn timeouts on offense.
I like that. Yeah, it always frustrates me when I see my team doing just that. Like, what are you burning a timeout for? It's just 5 yards. Come on.
Yeah, but he said defensively, if something's wrong, that can be a touchdown.
That's right. That's a good point. Okay, Frank. So I didn't open up the way I usually do for anybody that's new to the network. So how did you get the job? Did you go to Memphis?
No, so I'm actually from Indiana, right? So I went to Indiana University, home of the college national champions from this past year.
I bet you thought you'd never say that.
Yeah, right. My goodness, I still can't believe it. Yeah, so I kind of cut my teeth covering high school sports in Indiana. Did that for 2 years at Oklahoma State. So I covered Oklahoma State the year that Cade Cunningham was there, and then did that for 2 years, and then I got the job at the Daily Memphian here to cover Memphis.
Okay, and are you in Indiana
right now?
Yes.
No, I live here in Memphis.
So now you're in Memphis. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you'll be you go to the games, you're covering the team with full credentials, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, so like I'm going to be going to Florida for the American Conference Media Days.
Awesome.
I'll be at every game. And then I'm also doing double duty starting this year. So I'll also be covering the basketball side of it too.
Awesome. Yeah. What happened last year's team?
For basketball?
Yeah. Usually Penny had a good team, but what happened?
Yeah, they had a rough year. Just never the consistency just never clicked for that group last year.
Yeah, that's the thing I was just talking about. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, with on one of my shows. This is one thing. Oh, about Texas Tech is that you just never know, and especially in basketball, you just never know from year to year in this portal age. It looks nice on paper, but you just don't know if the kids are going to click because you got to click really fast.
And I think this year, to Penny Hardaway's credit, I think this year he was more strategic in getting pieces that fit as opposed to just getting a collection of talent,
top
right?
Players,
and so I think, and so I think we'll see this roster mesh way better than last year's roster did.
Yeah, it's usually one of those lessons that all coaches have to learn when they haven't learned that yet. So I always have to have a bad season, and they go, "Yeah, this ain't gonna work." Okay, so Frank, I really appreciate it. I've got the link in the description of this video for your social account. You can link on over to anything else that Frank covers for the Daily Memphian. And do you have like your own podcast, or do you put out your articles on the football team on specific days?
Not specific days, because once we get rolling in the season, you're basically turning out stuff every day, right?
Yeah.
So the dailymemphian.com is where you can check all my articles out and everything. And then obviously, like you said, my Twitter handle is Frank_Bonner too. As we get, later into July, all my preview stuff will start to roll out.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to the opportunity. Maybe one of those early games, either UNLV or Boise. I'll reach out. Maybe we can do a little preview of some regular season football games. Can't wait. Right?
Yeah, man. I love it. Just reach out to me and I'll be down to do it.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate it.
All right. You have a good one.
You too. All right. Frank Bonner, beat writer for the Daily Memphian. And there is a link in the description for that as well. Matter of fact, story, I noticed that he just did regarding the coach. So you can click on that link right now and you can go right to that story. And then any other stories that are on the page, obviously, you can check it out, and also his social handle. So 7.5 this is definitely one of those situations that's going to be tough. Because I completely see what Frank is saying. I can look at Memphis knowing Huff and how good of a coach he is. And even though there's so much turnover with the program this year, that and there's a lot of unproven production from these players, that there's a lot of questions there. But as Frank said, there's a lot of questions with some of those other programs as well. Now, I don't know how many interviews I'm going to be able to line up in Group of Five. I'm going to try. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, that includes Navy and Army, but I am going to try. I'm reaching out to as many of these, especially in the Group of Five. I might be a lot more picky, but when it comes to Group of Five teams, I'm definitely going to some of the better teams. So I'm going to Navy and Army and Tulane, South Florida, and of course Frank was awesome to respond, and we set that up. So UTSA. So yeah, because the more I can get, if I can get like all of those interviews in, then we'll have a fair assessment by time the season begins on exactly what we think could go on with the AAC. But just by listening to Frank and understanding, again, the way Huff coaches, he's got some talent there to work with. But the two things that I would be concerned with is the schedule and not knowing what they got at quarterback. It's a complete unknown. That's why it's going to make it very difficult to say anything until I see the kid play against UNLV. But I will say that, and look, this is another reason why, even if I can't get Frank on before the UNLV game, let's just say I say, hey, Frank, just give me 10 or 15 minutes to preview the UNLV game. Because that's what we're going to get to once we are previewing games, once we're into the beginning of the season and every week. Because remember, it's not just college football, it's NFL. So once we get into there, a lot of the interviews that we're doing now that can last 30, 60 minutes, they're going to be lasting 10 to 20 minutes max, because I need to get in as many interviews on a weekly basis as possible to help us when we're looking at games and going over and dialing it in from Frank's perspective and saying, hey, like say we talked to him before the UNLV game. Hey, I know what went on in camp. This is what's happening. Quarterback looks awesome, or a quarterback situation looks shakier than I thought. So that's the kind of information that I'm looking forward to getting from Frank and others like him. And if some of them are unable to join us until the season begins, and then, who knows? Then, hey, we can't get Frank on before UNLV. Let's get him on before Boise. So we'll work on it, and we're going to do our best to give you as much really cool information to get you ready each week in the NFL and college football. So anyway, I can't really give a buy or a sell on Memphis at this point. All I can say is that I'm going to back Frank. I think this could be an 8-win team. If I had to wager on it today, that's exactly what I would do. You are giving up minus 125. I'm not happy about that. But look, it's going to be a very interesting, and not just interesting, it's going to be a very exciting season in college football with all of this turnover. We've seen more, every year we're seeing more and more turnover than ever before. And just look at the portal, the way it looks, because it's not going to be like this for Memphis next year. Because every team is going to have their different periods where they're going to be hiring coaches and bringing in this wealth of portal players. So Huff, it can only do this basically once. Sure, he might be able to bring in more players that he recruited and coached next year, a sprinkle here, a player there. But the whole like this, that's just not happening again at Memphis, at least for the next, as long as Huff's there. It's not happening. These players are not just there. They're not all just seniors and they're going to graduate and you're going to bring them all in again. That's not how it works. Okay. So that is our talk on Memphis, and that was really cool. We'll talk more about the AAC. Let's now talk about the ACC and Georgia Tech. So let me get Georgia Tech. Let's get their win total in here. Here we go. 6.5 for Georgia Tech, plus 105 over, minus 125 under. So let me see if I can grab their, let me get this. Let's get their schedule in here. Okay, Georgia Tech. All right, let's see what their schedule looks like. No Haynes King. So Haynes King, the Haynes King era did not end well. I was very disappointed in how things went with Georgia Tech last year. At the end of the season, I was absolutely disappointed in how they blew their chance to be in the ACC championship game with that matchup against Pitt. I was a big Georgia Tech guy last year. I really, Najeh, I talked to Najeh before the season began last year. I was really behind Haynes King, loved him as a college football player. But that game against Pitt was just so disappointing. And it was actually one of my top picks of the week. I was like, oh, because I'm all in on Georgia Tech all season. Of course, I'm going to take Georgia Tech in this game, their biggest game in their home stadium, and I don't know how long. And it just was a complete misfire. So that was really disappointing. And so now you have to look at a program that is going to be without a quarterback that threw for 245 yards a game, nearly a 70% clip, almost 1,000 yards rushing, 953, 15 touchdowns on the ground. So Haynes King is a massive player to lose. And we'll find out exactly who it is that will replace one of the more exciting quarterbacks in college football. As you see, they're going to kick things off in their first two games with a pretty tough schedule. Not unbeatable. A couple of teams, a couple of programs that they definitely should be capable of hanging with or beating. Tennessee, obviously, the bigger opponent. And then taking a look at the rest of the schedule, they get the usual Georgia matchup at the end of the season. But taking a look in the ACC, and it doesn't look bad early. Take a look at this early schedule, and maybe they get revenge here at Pitt. And really, I think this is where it starts because that'll be a big game after what happened last year. And I have no idea how good Pitt's going to be. And hopefully we'll talk to someone. But Louisville, Clemson, and back-to-back. And then Georgia at the end of the season. So 3 of their last 4 games are going to be tough. So they start with a couple of tough ones, and then they get even tougher at the end of the season with the 3 out of 4 stretch. So that is going to be tough. And nobody knows about some of these other teams. But I would believe that from Mercer down to Pitt, okay, you've got these 6 games. I believe Georgia Tech, they should win these games. Okay, if they're as good as they should be, then they should win these games. And they better, and they really need to start 1-1. You cannot start 0-2. So you start 1-1, you hope for 2-0. But if you're 1-1 and then you run this 6, now you're 7-1 going into the 3 out of the last 4. And then that is what's going to determine everything. You've got the 2 of them are home games. And so obviously you want to take care of business at home. So really, if you're looking at this, the big game maybe of the season could be this one right here at Clemson. And I just spoke to Phil Kornblut of the Sports Talk SC Network. You can check that interview out from yesterday. And let's see. Let me get a note into Najeh. Okay. Make sure everything's okay. All right. So that is the big one, though. All right. And Clemson, again, just speaking to Phil yesterday about the Tigers, they're going to be a little bit of a mystery team because they had such a bad year last year. that you kind of feel that they're kind of due to rebound, but they lost so much. They just lost so much. And you really are it's like one of those things where it's like, man, how do you have all of that talent and expect to be better this year when you couldn't do it with those guys last year? But that's every year's different in college football. And this is what happens. Sometimes you underachieve and sometimes you overachieve. And sometimes it happens in consecutive seasons. So anything's possible. Matter of fact, Phil thinks Georgia Tech is going to have a good season. And Georgia Tech is considered right now the 9th choice in the ACC. So we've got the 6.5 line there. We went over the schedule. And that's the thing. We went over the schedule and I went through the line. Look, I went through the games and I said, split here 1-1 and then win these 6, 7-1. And I didn't just say that to say, okay, this is what they have to do. That's basically what I think they will do. I'll feel a little bit more confident after Najeh hooks up with us and he puts a little bit more confidence in me. But yeah, I mean, at that point, I'm all over the over 6.5 plus 105. So 7-5, sure, why not? That's not an overly tough schedule. Let's take a look at the ACC line. Let's see. No, that's national championship. Okay, so here's the ACC line, and there's Georgia Tech at 35-1. Now, they might be a really nice one because, look, we're going to go over this for the next couple of months, and I'm probably not even going to be ready to actually say, here's our official prediction. This is definitely this is definitely a team we have in the championship game, or this is definitely a team that we have as our top sleeper or our national championship sleeper. But the fact is that there will be plenty of teams in college football this year that will be in this section here, in this 35-1 section or higher, that we're going to go, oh, love those odds. That team is going to be a lot better than those odds are. Take advantage of it. They can't all win, of course. Only one can win. But that's what I love about the big numbers, like the 35 and the 75 and all that, because you don't have to put up a lot. And what you could do. See, Miami's at minus 136, so I would prefer them at about plus something. Plus 105 even. The fact that I'd have to give up minus 136 and sit on it for like 7 months, that's no. I mean, I'm not Jim Feist, so I'm not going to do that. But Georgia Tech, I even think Cal is going to be one of those sleeper teams. I tell you right now, I have no problems taking Georgia Tech and Cal at 35-1 and hoping just one of them can make it to the championship game. Because I honestly don't see a major difference in talent between those programs and the ones that you're chasing up here outside of Miami. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. So that's why we have our special guest coming on to talk some sense into me about Georgia Tech football. So let's bring in Najeh Wilkins to the stage and get it done. Najeh, how's it going?
I'm good, my brother. How you doing, Mr. Gray?
I'm doing good. Thanks for doing this.
Anytime, man. It's always a pleasure being on here with you.
All right, Najeh. So we had this nice conversation last year, and it really, I was bought all in. I bought all in to Haynes King, loved him, was behind him all year. And as I said a few minutes ago before you came on, it was one of the, if I had to, every year there's situations when you're handicapping games or just as a fan, you have like this group that, all right, like if I had to put a video together and said, here's my top 5 most happy moments, and here's my top 5 most disappointing moments, the top 5 disappointing moments would have included the Georgia Tech Pittsburgh game. Ooh. And it was just so, it was one of those things where, you're watching it and you're just not believing it. like you're like, this is not what's happening here. Everything that's taken place the last couple of years under Haynes King and Brent Key, it has led up to this point. At home, chance to be in the ACC championship game against Pitt. What happened? How was it? Just one of those things where it just got too big and they just weren't able to handle it?
No, I don't think it got too big. I think it was a lead up to that, to be honest with you, Greg. It was the team wasn't playing good football, right? You go look at the game, they barely skated against, Boston College, 36-34 victory. Defense didn't play well at all, right? Easily could have lost that game, and they were having some defensive issues like stopping the run, right? And they were getting gashed, consistently over and over again. And you couple that with kind of like to begin the season, defense is playing up here, right, Greg? And they're playing very well. And an offense is coming together. It felt like the offense kind of had to carry the defense. Okay. And it just got to a point where they kind of, ran out of gas a little bit, the battle of attrition, a lot of guys out, and they just didn't have, I don't want to say enough, but they just weren't there, I think. But just how the team was playing, confidence, how they were struggling, and they didn't have enough to overcome the kind of that onslaught. Now, they figured it out in that second half, but it was too little too late at that point.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say too big for the moment. And the reason I don't say that, Greg, because they won big games. They beat Miami. They beat North Carolina at home. They beat Clemson early in the year, 24-21. So I don't never think it was the moment. I just think it was the battle of attrition, the struggles they had, and it all kind of just compounded.
Well, the Haynes King era is now over, and that's the disappointing part of it is those quarterbacks don't grow on trees, especially at Georgia Tech. So that was another really big disappointment. But it's college football, and you turn the page and you bring in the next guy, and lo and behold, the next guy happens to have the same last name as the number one pick in the draft. It just happens to be related to him, Alberto Mendoza. So how good can Alberto be compared to his brother?
I think he'd be very good. He only had 25 career passing attempts, but you look at the accuracy, look at his numbers more in depth, according to Pro Football Focus, very accurate in the intermediate area of the field and down the field, right? And he's a guy that had a very productive spring. He was 12 for 16. He had 148 yards passing, and he had a touchdown. Ran the offense at a high level in the spring game, did what he was supposed to do, took shots when shots were there, had a nice deep ball to DeBron Gatlin as he kind of hit top the defender for the touchdown. He's a guy that is a gym rat, or I guess you could say playbook rat. He wants to be elite. He wants to put in the time. He's coming in early, staying late, right? How he processes is what his head coach and his position coach, Chris Winkie, have talked about, and how quickly and how he asks questions that even makes them think a little bit, right? So this is a guy that's hungry for this opportunity. He's waited for it, and he's going to be, I believe, the starter. That's pretty clear cut at this point. And he's a guy that just wants to show what he can do. He's not trying to be in his brother's shadow. He's like, I'm my own man, and I'm going to show everybody what I can do.
Okay, so last couple of years, the offense was pretty simple. When you have someone like Haynes King, not that he couldn't throw the ball, but it was about his athleticism, and he was just such a talent. So is the offense going to change dramatically or not so much?
It will. It will. Okay, so Georgia Tech underwent a lot of changes last year. New defensive coordinator, Jason Seymour, now no longer have Blake Gidding. He returned back to Texas. Don't have Buster Faulkner anymore, who ran that RPO system, ran the offense through Haynes King. He's now at Florida, right? And he brought some assistant coaches with him. So the new offensive coordinator is George Gotze. He comes over from the NFL, tight ends coach with the Ravens. They're going to run a pro-style system now, right? So less RPO, kind of more, running the football, being under center, and that kind of thing. So the offense is going to look vastly different, right? Now, I still think the identity is not going to change. They're still going to run the football. They're just going to be smashing out football. But they're going to see a lot more play action, less shotgun things, and looking for those big plays in shotgun, but using more so the tight end as receiving threats instead of only blockers.
Okay. And it sure helps if you're going to run the football a lot that you have someone like Justice Haynes in the backfield. And when things were going well for Haynes and Michigan in the running game last year, he was as good as there was in the country. And then the injury came, and he just kind of, settled in and saved himself as well he should have. And now he's ready to go, I'm assuming. And he could have a really monster season, couldn't he?
Yes, he can. I mean, you look at he was one of the only, I maybe think 5 backs that averaged over 7 yards a carry last season. The other one is on the team right now that nobody talks about, and Malachi Hosley. So you're looking at a portion of Ferrari in the backfield, in my humble opinion, with those two guys and what they can do and bring to the table. But Justice Haynes is just that explosiveness, that guy you can get. Hey, we need a big run, we need a big play, we need to set the tone in this game. He's going to give you that 850-something yards rushing last season. The first 5 games of the year, he had over 100 yards. And you just look at a guy in this offense that's going to be predicated around him with a new-look offensive line. They're going to want to give him the ball. I think he gets the ball 20-plus times. Him and Hosley, they're going to run the ball. That's the identity of this team. But now Georgia Tech has somebody that can catch the ball also out of the backfield. He doesn't need that much space, and he can make multiple people miss before even hitting the hole. So this is a guy, they have not had this in quite a while. I know last year they had Jamal Haynes, but they haven't had quite this elite jump cut ability, this elite playmaking ability, and home run threat every time he touches the ball. They have not had that in a long time.
Okay, so along the receivers, looks like Allen is one of the key holdovers, freshman last year. But there are 4 transfer portal receivers coming in. So from what you saw in the spring, is there like a clear 3, or is there going to be some battles at camp that still need to rectify that?
There will be some battles in camp, and to help you with your depth chart, Jalen Mbako is going to play specifically cornerback this year. No wide receiver for him. He came over from Alabama. Isaiah Furman will be a guy to watch, 6'4", came over from Elon. He should be able to hopefully be a guy. Didn't play a lot in the spring. Was still battling through an injury, so hopefully he'll be able to battle. But outside of Jordan Allen, there's a lot of unknowns. Now, they had a cornerback switch to wide receiver in Dalen Penton. He played the position in high school at Sandy Creek, locally in Tyrone, Georgia. He's going to be a guy. He stood out in the spring. He made a lot of different plays. Got Javin Plummer. He should help with the depth there. They got a couple freshmen coming in the fold, and Kentrell Davis. He'll be very interesting, him coming in there. Obviously got DeBron Gallen, who I talked about earlier, who was very good, but there is no set, this guy's the only guy that's really set is Jordan Allen. And he's the guy that's set because he can do pretty much everything. He can play X, he can play Y, he can play Z, and he knows the entire playbook, and he's been taking on that leadership role. But outside of that, it is pretty much, we're going to find out who's going to be in the top 3. But it should be, Furman should be in that conversation. But we got to see. But yes, Mbako is going to play specifically cornerback.
Okay, so he's playing corner. And Is he just in the mix at corner? No, he's not a starter or anything?
I think he will be a starter.
You do? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
I do think he will start.
All right. And is that what he played in high school?
Yes, that is. He played that, and he plays a 5-star from Clay Chalkville. He played corner, and he played predominantly quarterback. But he's a 5-star prospect. He was top tier.
5-star?
Yes, sir. This was a 5-star. This is one of the best players in the country.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Didn't work out
where's he
Alabama,
from?
but
Oh, he's from Alabama. He went to Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It just didn't work out. They're loaded at corner.
Yeah, that's true. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Okay. That's a good one to have there then. So it's wide open, and hopefully if we get a chance to talk before the season, these are the questions I will go right after and see if there's been some separation. All right. Offensive line. Rutledge is off to the NFL, first-round draft pick. Yep. How's the rest of the unit look?
Yeah, so it'll be Ethan McKinney at left tackle. He didn't play a whole bunch of spring, but they feel good about the left guard position. And from what I've been hearing, it's going to be Kevin P. It should be Kevin P. at that position this upcoming year at left guard for them. He's coming in, getting some good experience. He's ready to go. Should be that starting left guard, barring anything unforeseen. Joseph Ionata, he will be the center. They like what he's able to do, and like what he could bring to the table. And he's a guy they have a lot of trust in. A lot of trust in. He's come over from Alabama as a transfer. They like what he can bring to the table. Now, you got the right guard and right tackle correct. You just got to flip-flop the names. But Jamison Riggs is going to move to right tackle, and Malachi Carney is moving inside to right guard. So that is the switch there. And Will Reed will be the backup center to Joseph Ionata.
Okay. Will Reed will be the backup center. Okay.
Yes, sir.
We'll move him over.
Yes, sir.
To number 2 center. Okay. So, and is there someone on the line like a Rutledge that has that type of talent in the next couple of years, or not so much?
Yeah, I'm gonna put you on some game, Greg. Cortland Hurd and Courtney Hurd, they are twins. They are massive. They're about good 6'6", close to almost 6'7". Both of those guys come over from East Coweta. They weren't the highest ranked. They were 3 stars, but they have impressed early and often in the spring. And they got the eyes and the focus, and they will play this year. I ain't saying they won't start. They will get some kind of playing time this year, whether it's in certain packages, special teams. Those 2 guys right there, the twins, they're going to have something to say here over the next few years, and they should be able to make some noise soon.
Twins along the offensive line. All right. Okay. Big guys. Wow. I wonder what his parents looked like. All right. And what was the last name again? Hurd.
Yep. Cortland Hurd and Courtney Hurd.
Okay. Got it. All right. Let's now move on to the defensive side. And we see the familiar name Efford at middle linebacker. Is it Efford or Eford? Eford. Okay. I always got screwed up by that because it's like you would think E would be EE, but whatever. So Eford, Kyle Eford, talk a little bit about Eford and also Lightsey. I know he put up some nice numbers there last year. So it looks like they're in pretty good shape at linebacker.
Yeah, they're in pretty good shape. They pretty much, they returned all 4, right? They returned Melvin Jordan, Kamen Spalding, who will have a great role this year. E.J. Lightsey and Kyle Eford, they also return. And I think what's interesting this year is, like I said, they brought in Jason Seymour. He's like a linebacker guru specialist, and I think he's going to have them play really good football, right? Both were leading tacklers last year. Kyle had 77. EJ had 76. But I think their development and the difference in scheme, right? This is no more of a zone type scheme and you play back. This is pin your ears back and you go attack. This scheme is going to be very different. So I think these guys should be due for, I think, career years. And I think Eford, the physicality he possessed, I think he should be on par for what he did his first couple of years when he had put the nation on notice, seen as a top-tier linebacker. I think he should be in that all-ACC conversation this year.
So really, the defensive side is the one that is going to be a lot more of a dramatic difference, where even though there's some change to the offense, like you said, they're still going to run the football, be physical. But on defense, that is a big change to be more of a laid-back, zone type of team compared to we're going to attack and play that sort of style. So that's interesting.
100%. Yeah. Like last year, like I said, played a lot of zone, keep things in front of you.
Yeah.
Not this year. They're going to be more attack style and trying to set the tone, essentially. Trying to set the tone. There is a couple names in the linebacker room I want to tell you about. Braylon Outlaw, true freshman, comes over from Pike Road in Alabama. Not saying he's going to start, but you have his name on here. He's going to be a name to watch. He impressed that coaching staff. He even was rotating in with ones at one point before he got kind of, respiratory infection. He's going to be a name to know. They also got Kamani Morales and CJ Gamble. Those are going to be a couple names in there as well. Not saying they're going to have great roles, but they should get some experience this year. Special teams, linebacker room, they should be both very good.
Okay. Up front, as far as the big boys, so there are 5 portal players I see that'll be mixed in with a few holdovers. So who are the ones we really need to be keeping an eye on?
I think you just about nailed it. Tawfiq Thomas, you talk about tone setter on the inside interior and nose tackle. He'll definitely start. That guy sets a tone. He has a mean nasty to him that this defense needs, and he's a great run stopper, and he also can create pressure. He's a problem. Noah Carter is the one I was most impressed with this spring. That guy right there is something different. In the spring game, he had 2 sacks. They didn't have an answer for him. Like, they couldn't even move the ball in the first quarter.
Really?
Like, that's how much this defensive line beat up the offensive line. And it's not to say the offensive line is not good, but that defensive line and Noah Carter didn't have an answer. And
another Alabama kid.
Another Alabama kid. As coach, what did coach say? Coach Kyle Pope said he's looking to bite your face off. Yeah.
Okay.
That kid is different.
I like it.
So, yeah, he's special. He's going to have a big thing to say. I think Jordan Walker's another one. I don't know if he'll start opposite edge, but they was running the tandem of those 2 on the outside. One side was Noah Carter, and then this guy right here, get off the bus guy, came over, I believe, from Rutgers. He's going to have a big-time impact this year, I think, for Georgia Tech as well. Hoffler will still, have an answer to. Braylon Manley's coming off the injury. He'll be good. But the difference this year is this team can go about 14, 15 deep at defensive line.
Oh.
That's going to be a problem. They have not been able to do that in the past years. They're going to be able to go 14, 15 deep. They're that good. And then Christian Garrett's the last one. He should be a starter. His body just transformatic reform for him. He looks completely different from when he started to where he is now, he's going to be good. But I'm put you on game, Greg. It's a name nobody's talking about. True freshman. All right. They're already looking at him as a guy that's going to play on first and second down. And that is Christian Speakman from Morrow High School. Nobody knows about him unless you're inside that program in school. They talked about and raved about him all spring long, and he was running with the ones. Not saying he's going to start, but that guy right there is going to have a big impact this year, and they already consider him a veteran as a true freshman. He just got on campus in January.
He's edge?
No, nose. Inside.
Nose.
Defensive line. Yep.
Okay.
That's
so
going to be named.
Speakman, true freshman, nose.
Yes.
Got it.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Secondary. And a lot of unknowns here as well. I don't see a whole lot of, big names here. So tell me, who should I be looking out for?
Yeah, this one will be very intriguing, man. I think the name you got to know, it got all ACC written all over him, is Tay Harris, right? I think this is the year, you see him take a step forward. Sophomore, got a lot of experience last year. He's even gotten some run at the star nickel position, right? Kind of as a rotate in behind even Kelvin Hill Jr., who I think is going to have a good year. But Tay Harris is going to be the name to know on the back end for Georgia Tech. He should be a starter this year. Had a productive spring, very hard hitter, very sound, very technical. He should have a big time season. Okay. I also got to throw in there Phoenix Felton, right? Even Coach Key was like, we should have played him way more last year, as a true freshman. That guy right there is probably one of the better tackles I think could be in the ACC. Very, very good player. And then to put it all together, Savion Riley. So there's concerns about the defensive back end, but this team is very multiple, right? When I say multiple, like Tay Harris can play in the star, and you can have Savion Riley that plays the strong safety, right? While you have Phoenix Felton roaming. So they're very interchangeable. Most people don't know that, but this team is very interchangeable. Guys can play kind of all over and rotate around. And with the speed and that they have on the back end, it's going to be a very special team. And Savion Riley being a senior with the experience, he's going to be to help the young guys kind of come along and they build their own thing. So they're going to be very good there. There's not a lot of questions, in my opinion.
Okay.
There's a lot of answers you're going to see this year. Now the questions is corner, right? I believe secondary, like as far as defensive back, you're good. Corner is going to be a big question. I feel like the name to know for me is Daquan White, right? Jonas DeClona didn't play in the spring, right? Injured. He had a very good spring, Daquan White did. And I feel like the game is slowing down for him coming up as a senior. Very physical. He played some really good, made some really good plays in the secondary. Had a lot of PBUs in the spring. I think this kid could be the name to watch as that CB2 for Georgia Tech. We'll see what happens. They still got Zach Toby, who will play on the opposite side. We'll see what happens. So I think for me, Daquan White, Jalen Mbakwe. Then you got Kelvin Hill playing that nickelback star nickel position. We see what happens with Toby, right? But obviously it'll be a competition to see who gets that cornerback second spot. But I feel like the first corner should be Jalen Mbakwe.
Okay, and we don't have him on there? I don't see him on there.
No, he was listed as wide receiver.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about him. There you go.
Sir.
That's why he's not on there. Okay. So, and then did you, okay, so you're just talking about the outside. What about nickel?
Nickel will be Kelvin Hill.
Kelvin Hill. Okay.
Yeah, he's very good, and he's taking it serious, and he's gotten better. He'll be the nickel, but don't be surprised if you see some packages where Tay Harris is in that spot too. Like, that's how good he's gotten. He's playing multiple positions this year and kind of moving around.
Okay. And the transfer portal kid, DeClona.
DeClona is interesting. I don't have too much on him because he didn't play in the spring. So he's kind of an unknown. If I'm humbly honest with you, Greg, he's a little bit of an unknown. He had a great season last year with, I believe, USF. He came in, they got him for a reason, but he did not play at all in really in the spring. So we got to see what he's going to look like. I could probably have a better answer during fall camp to see because he should be in the fold. But I know that for those that did play, it was Daquan White and Jalen Mbakwe who held it down in the spring to me. Okay,
so the major camp battles then, you've got wide receiver for the offense.
Yep.
And then on defense, what would we be looking at as the major camp battles?
I would say wide receiver, and I would go defense. I'll probably go corner. Corner is going to probably be a big one. I feel like, defensive line, you kind of know what it's going to be. Yeah, guys can get more playing time, but I feel like you kind of know what you want to go with there. Linebacker, you do too. And I feel like safety as well. But I feel like corner is going to be that one.
Okay. And then how's special teams looking? Looks like everybody's back.
Yeah, everybody's pretty much back, man. Another big year for, the Luke Garza. finalists. You know what I'm saying? And Aiden Bird, this guy is kicking 60-yard field goals.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's a weapon. You need that.
Need that. He already, he has ice in his veins. He hit the 55-yard game winner, but he's trying to continue to add to his craft. Really good special teams coordinator Tim Salem. And this is a guy I think, I believe he's been all ACC, but he should be regarded in the ACC as the best kicker. That's how good he is. And he's been taking his game to another level. And I think he's due for a big time season. If he does, I think he's NFL bound.
And is the same punter or is new? Joshua Taylor, was he there last year?
No, it was they had got a kid from, was it UNLV? He ended up leaving. I believe Taylor is the new one. I'm pretty sure.
Yep. All right. So again, taking a look at Georgia Tech, they're sitting there at 35-1 as the ninth choice of the ACC. Interesting. I had Phil Kornblut on from the Sports Talk SC Network, and I was asking him about some other teams in the ACC. We were going over it, and he actually was very high on Georgia Tech. And I was surprised just because of where they are. I mean, I didn't know anything about them until we talked. So, yeah. So, how do you feel? Because, again, they're considered, not that they're always right, considered a ninth choice in the ACC, or I don't think that's actually where they're going to end up. But their win total is, and this is, I was also surprised, is only 6.5.
Yep.
Because I went over their schedule while I was waiting for you, and I kind of felt that it was very possible that they could be 7-1 heading into the November schedule.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, to be honest with you, Greg, they've been disrespected all, off season long. Head coach Brent Key is ranked number 9 coach in the ACC. Alberto Mendoza is ranked number 15 as a quarterback in the ACC. I mean, some of the lists are crazy.
15?
Yeah, 15. I mean, there ain't that many great ACC quarterbacks. It's like the top 4 or 5 are good, but come on, man. So, wow. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, some of these rankings, and only 6.5 wins. I mean, that's number 9 as well in the conference, according to, the bookings. But, yeah, I agree. The key game to me is Tennessee, right? Colorado, you can't snooze at them. They'll be a lot better this season. Yeah. Julian Lewis is not a quarterback. Cam Perry, they got some good players. But Tennessee, if you can win that game, you set yourself up very well to be a good football team this year, right? 7 p.m. kickoff. That a lot of eyes. All eyes going to be on Ohio State, Texas, but a lot of eyes going to be on that one, right? And this is a team that made a complete shift for Tennessee. New defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, coming over from Penn State. New defense, right? Let Tim Banks go. You got a new quarterback in the frame. Everybody's saying it's probably going to be Faison Brandon. It's a true freshman 5-star coming in there for them. It's a big game. If you can beat Tennessee, that's another SEC team on your schedule, right? Along with Georgia, as always. You can handle business there. You go 4-0. You beat Stanford on the road. That's going to be a tough game because it's on the road, late night, 10:30. You're 4-0, right? Then you have wiggle room, right? If you lose to a Virginia Tech or, you slip up and you lose to Pittsburgh or something, you're good.
Yeah.
Right? You're okay.
Yeah.
Then it's the last 4 games, right? That's the toughest stretch of the season to me.
Yes.
Louisville, Clemson, Wake Forest, Georgia. That's a tough stretch right there. Yeah. And last year, we just talked about it coming on. They lost gas. Right, they didn't look the same, but I think easily Georgia Tech should be able to be 7-1 at that point before they get to the final 4 games. Right, it's all doable. Right, the slip up to me is Virginia Tech. It's going on the road, Blacksburg, middle of the season. That's not easy, but those games are winnable. Stanford, Boston College,
yes.
Pittsburgh lost pretty much everybody. They bring back Mason Heistel, but you lose Rasheem Biles, you lose Desmond Reed, you lose Kyle Lewis.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of missing pieces.
Yeah, again, that's why even if they split the first 2 games and lose one of those games heading up into those final 4, they're still in it. They'll have to, beat both Louisville. I mean, all 3 of those games to possibly put themselves in the ACC championship. But the schedule is really, I like, I prefer schedules that are tougher at the end of the season, because I want to be able to set myself up for that. Because you're always going to get better as the season goes on, and you want to play. I think you should want to play the better teams later in the season, and that's exactly how it sets up for Georgia Tech. So, and this would be a big season then for them, especially if they get off to another good start. They can't afford to have like a bad November again.
No.
That would be a really bad sign for the coaching staff, especially with different players. So, yeah, there might be some pressure on them, but then again, there's always pressure on coaches. How's the mood as far as the fan base? Is it too early? You talked about how the nation, at least, is kind of putting them down. Are the fans kind of hearing that? Are they dialed in more with what you're saying and some of the other guys that are covering the team?
Nah, they're dialed in, man. They're actually excited. I don't know if you know about the recruiting trail, but Georgia Tech has 25 commits right now, and nearly 9 of them are blue chip prospects for the 2027 cycle. And they got a whole bunch of 4-star prospects committed, and they got a top 25 class right now in the 2027 cycle, right? So this is a team that may not seem like it on the outside of the nation, but inside them circles, this is a team that knows they got everything they need to be good this year. They have everything. They got the quarterback. They got the running backs. They have everything they need to be good. And this fan base knows it too. They just want to see them win those games they got to win, right? Yeah. They're interested to see the Tennessee game, right? How do they go and respond? The Virginia Tech game. Can they finally get over Georgia? They beat them the last 7 times, right? So I don't get a fan base that's kind of, ambivalent. I get a fan base that's, hey, we excited, right? It's excitement of we want to see what they do. But with all the renovations, $70 million renovations to the stadium, new student center, like some optimism growing around this team and what they can do and accomplish, right? To your point, you don't want to blow it, but I think this fan base is excited.
What ceiling does Key have as a coach? How good can he be?
Now, when we say how good, are we talking ACC good? Or are we talking about nationally good?
Nationally.
I think Coach Key, he could be a top 10 coach.
Okay, so you think that he's at that level where he could take this program to really good heights, maybe even win an ACC title, and be the type of coach that other big programs want?
1,000%. I'll break it down for you. First came in, no disrespect to Georgia Tech, they were a bottom dweller. Nobody was talking about Georgia Tech when he came, in there.
Yeah.
7-6. Could nearly won 10 games last year. Had BYU on the ropes. They go 9-4. Could have easily won 10 games. Cool. The first 3 or 4 games, as you can see right here, Greg, if you don't see a different change in the team, first 3 or 4 day games is in prime time on ESPN. That was not the case a few years ago. In prime time. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number 2, they were the most viewed ACC team in the nation. All of the 17 teams are in there. Outside of Miami, they were the second most viewed team.
Wow.
So he clearly can, 1, get them nationally relevant, 2, bring eyes to games, which is why these games are on prime time. That's what Coach Key does. And he's obviously already has a culture established, a system established, and what he wants the identity of this team to be. It don't matter if it's a new defensive coordinator. It don't matter if it's a new offensive coordinator. This team and this identity is going to remain the same, period. And last thing, I say he wins the big games, right? He's 5-1.
Yes.
In the AP top 25 as an underdog.
Oh, yeah.
So he's there. The last hurdle, to your point, Greg, is going to an ACC championship game where he was on the doorstep of last year. Yep. They were handle business. They there. If he can go to that and they can get this team to a CFB playoff, we having a different conversation. But I don't even think he will leave because he loves Georgia Tech. He just signed a 5-year extension. So
because this is a Power 4 program, you believe that Georgia Tech has the resources and he wants to stay. He could be a long-term Georgia Tech guy. He could be building something at Georgia Tech instead of leaving.
Without a doubt. They've equipped them with all the resources. They got a new administration in there where Ryan Alper, who came over from Tennessee. They doubled their recruiting staff, to help him bring in better prospects and what he needs. He talked about girth and size. Go look at this class they got. Joshua Semenpel, 6'9", right? Braylon Mills, 6'7", right? 7 or 8 defensive linemen coming into this class. 3 new linebackers. He has everything he needs at Georgia Tech, all the resources, the NIL, the funding to be good for a long time. And he's an alum.
Yeah,
doesn't want to go nowhere.
That's a ticket right there.
Yep.
Do you need to see Mendoza in training camp, or have you seen enough that you already believe that he's ready to go and he's going to be just fine?
I've seen enough. My date I have circled is September 3rd. I want to see it in live game action. I've seen enough in the
You don't need to
spring.
see any more practice reps with him. Okay.
I've seen enough. I think that's your guy.
Okay.
But can you do it in those primetime spots when it's adversity? So I'll give you a prime example. Let's say Tennessee shuts down the running game. Can you lead us to a victory? Can you overcome that? Can you give us a late game drive and put it on the line and make the right throws and reads for us to win the game?
Yep.
That's what I need to see from Mendoza.
Great job, Najeh. I really appreciate it. Once again, you're going to have me psyched for Georgia Tech football this year. And I love it that they're a nice little sleeper underdog. They're not even a sleeper. They're an underdog. They're 35-1. They're the ninth choice. I love it. So we're gonna look really smart talking about Georgia Tech this season, because they have, outside of the Pittsburgh loss, like you said, with those 5 upset wins, for the most part, Georgia Tech has made me look pretty smart. So I'm going to stay on that road, and I appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Thanks for having me as always.
Thanks, Najeh.
Yes, sir.
All right, Najeh Wilkins. So you can check out his work on the links in the description area of this video. allyellowjackets.com. Also host of the Sizzle News podcast. And we are looking at a team, and I kind of felt that, again, just before we had Najeh on. I went over the schedule, and I said 7-1. And now I've been reaffirmed. Najeh did an awesome job going over the reasons why this team is going to be a lot better than people think. And I think that's really awesome. I love picking and going after these teams that are being disrespected. There's nothing more satisfying as an analyst than finding sleepers and long shots. Nothing more satisfying. And we do it every year. And every year we get smarter and smarter, because we're being joined by analysts like Najeh, like Frank, that are educating us to depths that we haven't been educated before for specific teams. Sort of like this is the thing that I kind of get a kick out of, is that Najeh talks about Mendoza being the 15th rated quarterback in the conference. And where is this coming from? What's coming from? I'm guessing it's coming from writers. I guess it's coming from maybe the ACC writers. Maybe they all get together and they put their rankings in, and then collectively, and then they're all tallied up. And this is what they came up with on average. So I'm assuming that's what it is. If I'm wrong, let me know. If that's the case, if most writers that are in the conference, and who knows, maybe it's not the conference, maybe it's nationally, but whoever it is, what they're not doing is they're not doing their homework. Okay, because if they did their homework and then they talked to the people who we talk to, they talked to Najeh, talked to, who have we already talked to? Gary Furman for the Hurricanes. I mean, we've already talked to, I think, about 5 or 6 ACC teams, and we have more. Let's see. Where is my schedule? As a matter of fact, I just booked Boston College today. ACC, we did Clemson yesterday. We're doing NC State tomorrow with Corey Smith, and that's a team that also is a team to keep an eye on. And then Boston College next Wednesday with AJ Black of the BC Eagles Insider. And then we've already had conversations. Where is the ACC? Where is it? Oh, I can just go down this list. So we've already talked Clemson. So we got Clemson, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Miami. We're going to do NC State. And that's it. Now, I have someone for Wake Forest and Duke. and SMU. So it's just a matter of getting those scheduled in. And then I've got feelers out now for, the ones I really want to talk to. I want to talk Cal, Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. Those are the ones that I'm after and I want to get. And then we'll go to the next groups, the next set of teams. And then look, it's early enough where we should be able to get them all. And if we can't get them all, and we only get 90% of the teams from each conference, then that's still a win as far as the Power Four. But I was really happy because we booked several new guests today, just today. We have Cody Goodwin scheduled to come on from Power Mizzou at 247 Sports a week from tonight. So next Tuesday night at 8:05, 8 o'clock, we start 8:05. Cody Goodwin makes his first appearance. Again, first appearance guest, love it. Next Monday night, first appearance guest, Texas Tech, publisher of RedRaidersports.com, Chris Lovell. Love it. And then we have guests that we've had on before. Again, tomorrow we've got NC State. That'll be 4:45. We have NFL with our Baltimore Ravens. We're finally going to talk some NFL this week. So we have some Baltimore Raven talk at 4 tomorrow. And then Corey Smith at 4:45. Thursday, we've got the same thing. We got NFL with Arizona with Jess Root at 4:05. And then Alec Bussey, Iowa State football, 4:45 Thursday. And then we go into the weekend with our Friday preview show where we take a look at the NFC East. Now, Jim Feist is over in California. He lives in Vegas. And so we're going to just make sure early enough on Friday that he's going to be okay to do the show. I'd really rather not do the show without him. And Andy Isco does an excellent job as well. So we have Jim and Andy, and they're both together with ProLine TV, and there are professional handicappers from Vegas. And we have an 8-week run with them. And we're right now, I think we're into the 5th week with the NFC East on Friday. And you can check out the other 4 divisions we did. And we go into win totals and conference division odds, schedules, what the team did from last year to this year. And I get the opinions of actual handicappers, and then they go over their picks and they tell you exactly what they'll wager on. Win totals. And it's just like I said, most of it is actually division or win totals. And then sometimes they'll go with a Super Bowl pick or a conference pick. But for the most part, they're just sticking to win totals and division. So I think it's great to get actual professional handicappers. These guys don't wager like I do, or most of us. These guys, when they wager on games, it's like 5, 10, 20, 50 grand at a time. So they have to get good information. Okay. Also, coming up in 2 weeks, another new interview. Sam Sklar from the Clarion Ledger. We're going to talk for the very first time with Sam about Mississippi State. All right. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about all the new ones. That's more information that I've ever had before with all these teams. And you know what? It's only June. I know we're almost at the end of June, but it's still June. So we still got a month to go before things start to get before things get started, because most of the rest of the country is really not going to start until the 3rd week of July at the earliest. It's that 3rd to 4th week of July when training camps start to open. That's when everything gets going. But man, we're 3 months ahead of them. We started in May. I think we started in April, actually. We're already 2 months ahead. Okay. So I think that's it. Oh, and yeah, because I gave you the schedule for the NFL. And that's all set. So that's what we're looking for as far as our schedule coming up. Tomorrow, again, we're going to be talking about the NFL with Tony Lombardi, who covers the Ravens from Russell Street Report. Tony's been with us for several years, and nobody knows about the Ravens more than Tony. So Tony is dialed into the program, and we're going to talk about a team with a new head coach. A lot of changes in Baltimore. Big coaching change in Baltimore. And let's see, we've already spoken to Fred Greetham on the Browns. We've spoken to John Sheehan on the Bengals. And we spoke with Alex Kozora on Pittsburgh. So this will be our last AFC North interview until we're heavily into the preseason. And then we're going to go ahead and put that to bed as far as that division on tomorrow's show. And then we have our college football interview after that. And then we do it all over again. So today it's an easy one. You know, we like Memphis at over 7.5. But it's something that I feel a lot better if I just, if we wait until August and I can get Frank to reaffirm, hey, that's okay. The quarterback situation is going to be fine. And if I get that affirmation, then I thinking 8 wins for Memphis, more than doable. For Georgia Tech, this is an easy one. With this team, with this coach, with that schedule, it would be a major, major disappointment if Georgia Tech did not win at least 7 games this season. But to me, they are looking like anywhere from, I'd say, worst case scenario is 8 wins. So it's still covering that number. That's worst case scenario. But this is a team, I think, that can go anywhere from 8 to 11 wins. And it all depends, of course, as Najeh correctly said, it all depends on that Tennessee game. It's going to really make a difference because he was right. I mean, you're getting potentially a 5-star, yes, talented, yes, quarterback, but you're getting him early in his career. That's early. And that quarterback will not be at home. He's not playing at Neyland. So, and you know that even though they still have to play a good Colorado team before Tennessee, you know they're already doing their scouting on this kid. They're already preparing for him. And I haven't looked at their schedule, but I would just easily guess that Tennessee, let me see, I'll just give it to you right now. Tennessee will be playing Furman before they play Georgia Tech. So it's not, I mean, it's a little bit of an edge for Tennessee to get Furman while Georgia Tech has Colorado. But still, we're going to see the young quarterback. If he wins the job, we're going to see him against Furman. And yeah, you would think that he'll be able to get away with a lot of stuff at Furman that he's not going to get away with against Georgia Tech. So it'd still be a little bit hard to gauge him. If it'd been better if he had played a Power 4 team, but it is what it is. And anyway, I think Georgia Tech will be able to set themselves up in that one in a really good way. And we'll see. I mean, hey, that kid could actually end up being the freshman of the year. Anything is possible. It's sports, college football. Nowadays, 5-star quarterbacks are playing a lot earlier than ever before. I think a lot of that just has to do with how much more the game has improved, or at least the repetitiveness. We're seeing more streamlining from the way quarterbacks are playing in high school, very similar to the type of game that you're getting in college and the pros. There used to be a dramatic difference between the way offenses used to be run in high school compared to college, and same thing in the NFL. Now it's a lot more streamlined than it's ever been. And that's why you're getting, especially from college to the NFL, high school to the college, you're getting these really talented kids, especially at quarterback, but these really talented kids. I mean, look, we saw Jeremiah Smith. I mean, Marsh, a couple of big receivers from the Big Ten do it as true freshmen. So we've seen true freshmen really impact the game if they're really talented. Same thing at quarterback. You're seeing that more and more. And even in the NFL, I think what you're seeing is if you have a lot of experience in college, and you don't have to be a stud, you just have to have a lot of experience. That's what Brock Purdy had. Brock Purdy had a lot of experience, and he went into the right situation, and he was able to play pretty early, adequately enough in his career. And then all of a sudden now, multimillionaire. So it doesn't happen to everybody. We get that. But it's so much more important nowadays where if you get the experience in college, because of the way that the game is so much similar regarding the schemes, the terminology, everything, but especially just the way the game is played. The overall, it's not like I remember growing up, high school, it was just so raw. I mean, back, 20, 30 years ago, you played high school, it was raw. You didn't know anything regarding the concepts of high school, of college football. So there was no way you were going to be ready to play as a freshman. No way. And then you're seeing the same thing, of course, I think more and more in the NFL. 20, 30 years ago, you just couldn't. If you were a rookie, the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Peyton Manning, John Elway, man, did they have games, Troy Aikman, did they have games early in their career as a rookie where they looked awful? They just looked lost, even though some of them, especially Peyton, which is why he was one of the greatest, didn't look out of place. Okay, but he just looked like a rookie. He looked like somebody that you kind of still weren't sure completely whether or not he was going to be a star. You were impressed, but it wasn't like he was lighting it up. But still, it was like, yeah, there's something there. You could tell. Now, again, at the time, it wasn't like the Colts were loaded like San Francisco was when Brock Purdy took over. But man, John Elway, when he came into the league, man, they killed him. And you know why they did? Because the whole thing with Elway, with the whole thing about, it was like there was a jealousy to Elway, and about where he wanted to play. And it was baseball, and it was just this big, he thinks he's better than us. Who's this kid? Who's this? He hasn't played in the NFL yet, and he's acting like he's the boss of himself when he shouldn't be. That's just not the way the NFL worked back then. And he paid for it. That rookie season, man, those defenses and the defenses weren't like the way the defenses are today, where you touch them and you get a penalty. Man, they just went after this kid every game. And hey, did it make him better for it? Absolutely. But nowadays, and that's the other thing where it because of the defense isn't allowed to tee off on you, that's another big reason why if you have experience in college and you go to the pros and you go to a good foundation, you got a good staff, you've got a nice foundation set, especially on offense, maybe a veteran line, players that have been around a while, makes it so much easier. And that's why it shouldn't be a surprise when you look back at the quarterbacks, even like Sam Darnold, you look back at these quarterbacks that did not succeed early. Anthony Richardson, there was no reason in the world for Anthony Richardson to become pro when he did. None. We talked about it at the time. It's like, what is he doing? And just look at his tape in college. He wasn't ready. And then a team actually picked him in the top 10? Really? And then you think to yourself, well, maybe they know something I don't. I doubt it, but maybe they do. No. And see, at least Ty Simpson is going to get time. First of all, he could get 2 years. I honestly don't know if I'd be surprised if he got 3. It all depends on Matthew Stafford's health. Like, there's no way McVay is gonna rush Stafford into retirement if the Rams win a Super Bowl this year and Stafford is ready to go again next year. And let's say they go and lose the Super Bowl the next year. And then Stafford's good. And Stafford comes back again and says, I'm ready. Okay, let's go. They're not rushing him out. As long as they win and as long as Stafford is playing great and they got a Super Bowl and they're looking for a second in 3 years, he's playing. And they won't. And that's the perfect situation for Simpson. Because even if he sits for 2 years, that third year will be like a regular NFL rookie. He's fine. And he'll be better for it, for him sitting and learning from one of the best to have played the game and to learn from the elite of elite offensive coaches. And these are the differences between the situations that a Ty Simpson is walking into than what a Sam Darnold walked into or a Zach Wilson walked into. And sometimes it'll work for a Sam Darnold, where he then goes to his third team or his fourth team, and he lands in Minnesota with one of the top offensive coaches in the league. Boom. Now, all of a sudden, I've been in the league long enough. I'm no longer a rookie. I'm no longer a player that would still be a rookie if I had gone to college the whole 4 or 5 years. Now you're in the prime early stages of your career, and you have 5 years experience or 4 years experience. Boom, it hits. Now, and then of course the next year he goes into a situation where he gets an offensive coordinator in Clint Kubiak, who was the perfect offensive coordinator for Sam Darnold. That offense was tailor-made for Sam Darnold. It was all play action. It was run the football first and play action like 80% of the time, it seemed. And they had one of the best running backs, actually one of the best running back duos in the league, and a very good elite special teams, a very good defense, an excellent defensive coach who coached that defense. And it was the perfect situation for Darnold. Now, had everything been the same in the AFC, Burrow was there, Mahomes was playing at his elite, Lamar Jackson was, Josh Allen had his best team, I'm not so sure Seattle wins the Super Bowl against one of those teams. But that's not what Sam Darnold had to face in the Super Bowl. You know, Sam had really a depleted San Francisco team in the playoffs in game 1. And then game 2, played a very good game that could have gone either way against a really good team. And they were able to pull it out. And why did they pull it out? Because they had a better defense than the Rams, which is why the Rams went out and made these big deals in the offseason. The Rams were that close, because if the Rams get to the Super Bowl, the Rams win the Super Bowl. Patriots weren't beating the Rams. So, again, that just goes to what I'm saying about Darnold and what he was able to do with his career. Now you look at Zach Wilson, and nobody knows, just like nobody knew about Sam Darnold. A couple of years ago, you looked at Sam Darnold, you were like, oh, this guy's never going to get it. This is a bust. No. Same thing with Zach up until the time. Now, no excuse. Okay, now he's got Kellen Moore. No excuse. Now, does he get a chance to play with Kellen Moore? Or is he going to be there for a year? He doesn't get off the bench. And I don't know. Somehow, maybe he leaves and goes somewhere else, which would be a big mistake. Unless another team says, hey, we're willing to let you fight for the number 1 job. But now we're going to find out whether Zach has got that ability. And maybe he doesn't, because it doesn't always work out. Like I said, sometimes it works out for a Sam Darnold and it doesn't work out for a Zach Wilson. But that's how hard it is. And it's not always because it's the player's fault. It's not always because, oh, the player it's always the player. The player is going to be good or he's not going to be good based on how good the player is. And a coach, well, yeah, he's important, but it's still the player first. And then the coach is just going to get a little bit more out of you. No. It's not like that for everybody. It's like that for some players. But for a lot of players, man, they need the right environment, the right timing, the right personnel. It's so important because, look, Sam Darnold is not a special player. All right, let's just leave it at that. All right, he's not a special player. I mean, he won the Super Bowl, and he's like one of those rare winning quarterbacks to not win MVP. I think that should tell you something. Good quarterback. Okay, he's definitely one of the better young quarterbacks. He's still young. He's one of the better young quarterbacks in the NFC now. But he's already reached his ceiling. I'd be absolutely shocked. I really would if there was another something there to Sam Darnold's game. Like, hey, we haven't seen anything yet. No, especially with Kubiak gone. I'm not seeing that. I think Sam is reached his ceiling. It's a good ceiling. It's a nice ceiling. You've won a Super Bowl. You're in a great situation compared to where you were, but you are who you are now, and that's now. You have to be concerned because now he's got an offensive coordinator who's never been an offensive coordinator before. And when we start talking more about Seattle, which I haven't hooked up yet with my Seattle guy, and if I don't hook up with him soon, we'll be looking for someone else. But we will talk about Seattle. And the one thing I can tell you already is that they're not going to repeat. It's not going to happen. And in the division like they're in, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, considering they got two teams that are very hungry there, one of those teams is deservedly the top team in the division and overall in the NFL, speaking just of Vegas, but they should be with the Myles Garrett move and the talent that they have from last year, and not just Garrett, but other players in that secondary that bolstered a passing defense that just let them down last year. If they're healthy, I'm sorry, I don't really. The only teams that can beat LA are in the AFC. So if LA is on top of their game, the only teams that can beat them in the AFC, and that would be Joe Burrow and the Bengals, Patrick Mahomes, or if the Buffalo Bills can put together their best team with Josh Allen. Those are the only three teams that will be able to compete with the Rams in the Super Bowl. And those three teams would have to be also playing at an elite level. This is why we talk about this with the draft every year at Ourlads. You have to preface everything with it all depends on what system they go to. And I'm not just talking about quarterbacks, all the way through. Are you a running back that is stuck behind two other running backs? Or are you a running back that just happened to be in a situation where, like, let's just say Bryce Young at Virginia Tech. Hey, all of a sudden, I'm there 1 year and they trade the star running back, and now I'm sitting there number one on the depth chart. Now, they can say I'm not number one on the depth chart, but everybody knows he is. So, again, a lot of it, and I've got an offense and a coach that knows what they're doing. Man, it just means so much. But saying that the players do have to own up is right to an extent. But the point is that we're all talking about the difference between being an average player to maybe I'm a fringe Pro Bowler. And I use that term very lightly now. People still want to use Pro Bowler like it means something. But as we've seen lately, Pro Bowl recognition means nothing anymore. It's just a way to kind of grade the player. That's all it is. It used to be a way to differentiate the special players in the NFL compared to the average players. That's not the case anymore. There's too many average players competing in Pro Bowls now. You've ruined it, and it's never going to change. Now it's just a graded system, and that's it. It's all pro. That's what you attain. That's what you want to attain in status in the NFL now. Are you an all pro player, all pro caliber? And so that's the thing. Are you an average player? Are you a Pro Bowler, or are you an all pro player? And along those lines, that's where coaching comes in, because a bad coaching staff, if you're a average player, let's just say you've got the talent and the ceiling to be a Pro Bowler, but you're playing like an average player because you're on a last place team. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a situation where you're in the hands of a great coach who knows how to use you. And for instance, you've been traded to a playoff team from a last place team. Well, now, instead of just being looked at as an average player, well, now you're going to have your ceiling. The ceiling will come out because you're now going to be raised. The stakes are raised. You're now in the hands of the proper coaching and team that is going to get the maximum out of you. And this happens all the time, every year. It's just it's a never-ending cycle, and sometimes it's fortunate and sometimes it's unfortunate, but it's the thing that happens all the time. And there are hundreds of stories of situations where I'm sure you can find stories of players that understand it when their career is over. Man, I could have had a better career. I could have had a more recognizable career if I was on a better team, if I was coached up better. And then you get some other players that are just average players, and that's all they are, but they're in big games and they're able to make big plays because they're in big games. And even though they're still just average players making big plays, and I'm not talking about acrobatic catches and things of that nature. I'm talking about, hey, you know what? I made a big play. It was 4th down. I beat the cornerback, and I was wide open in the corner of the end zone, and the quarterback got me the ball, and I held on to it. And now all of a sudden, now I'm a star. So it happens all the time, and this is really also a reason why it's important, and this is why I love doing this. I love interviewing everybody, and I love talking about it and putting these videos together, because we're going to be able to go through the entire ride together. So if you're with me, if you're with us here at Ourlads, and you can go through the ride, whether you want to start every year at the draft and work your way all the way through till the next draft, this is the ride. We're going to be together. We're going to take it from free agency to the draft, to training camp, to the regular season, the playoffs, and the Super Bowl. And the same thing in college. We're going to go through the same thing. And when we come out at the end, I promise you, we're going to look back with everything that we've talked about for months leading up into the end of the season. And we're going to have a lot more wins than losses. I'm not talking about bets. I'm just talking about observations, about teams being better than people think, or teams being overrated. Players, same thing. All of that. I promise you, if you're along with the ride and you see us through, we are going to make you smarter, because I'm getting smarter when I talk to my guests, and you have to be getting smarter. So, and sometimes, and a lot of times I should say, because we only have one guest or two guests a show. And when we get to the regular season, when we get to like the last couple of weeks of the off season, and we start doing nothing but like, all right, we're done with our interviews basically. And those last several days or that last week before the season, no more interviews. We'll do interviews once the season starts. We'll go, week to week, game versus, so forth. But we'll have that week or so where we're just going over predictions, and we're going over all the information we've gathered for all these months in the offseason. And you're not going to be with us for every show. I know that. You're going to miss some, and you might miss half of them. I don't know. But I'm not going to miss any of them. And I'm going to make sure, because I'm doing each of these interviews and I'm gathering all this information, that when we do make our predictions and we go over our analysis and we let you know what we think is going to happen, that is then going to be our opportunity to get back to you one-on-one and say, okay, here's everything that I've learned from all the time that we've put together in this offseason to get you ready for the upcoming season, to make you smarter, and to prepare you in any way that you want, whether it's contests, fantasy. And trust me, we're going to get into fantasy soon too. At some point before it gets busy in August, because that's like the big busy month for our fantasy world. I'm going to get Jared Smola on. Matter of fact, I'm going to try to see if I can get several of our top fantasy contacts from Draft Sharks. And that's something I really have to do. I probably should even write this down now as soon as I get off the show. I've neglected that for a little bit. But we're going to do that, and we're going to also go into the minds of these expert fantasy guys. And the guys over at Draft Sharks, they know what they're doing. They've won awards. They have been, I think they have a back-to-back. I don't know. I haven't seen who won it this year, but the last 2 years in the industry, they've been awarded basically what it is when you put together rankings in fantasy football, and you say, okay, these are my rankings at the end of the season. This is what I think players are going to do for the season. This is how I'm ranking them for each position, for different rules and things like that. So when the end of the season comes, you look back and gather all that information, and you compare it to all the other fantasy football experts and sites that said these are their rankings. And so it determines who was the most accurate. And the boys over at Draft Sharks, back-to-back years, different analysts. That shows you they've got a bullpen. So they've got smart guys there that know their fantasy football, and we're going to have some of them on. I'm in a dynasty league with them. So we have the Ourlads Draft Sharks Fantasy League. It's a dynasty league where we have half of the teams are from players from Ourlads, either and again, it's me only, and also Dave Syvertson, who is one of our top scouts. So it's just me and Dave, but then the others are associated with us in some capacity, like our Atlanta Falcons analyst, things like that. And then on their side, they're all Draft Sharks or Draft Shark, their own contacts, similar. And their contacts similar are other top fantasy guys. So we've been in, I think what have we had, 2 years doing it now? With 3. Because we won a championship last year or 2 years ago. I don't know. We had a championship. I think it's 1 out of 3. I don't know. Either way, all I know is we won one championship, and I'm proud of that when we're facing some really kick-ass fantasy experts. So we have a fun league. It's a dynasty league, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to actually, what I want to do is when I have them on, we're going to take a look at our rosters and take a look at our most recent rookie draft, because there's still people who are going to be doing leagues. They're going to be doing rookie drafts all the way up until the season begins. So we're going to go over that and a bunch of other stuff, and maybe have them on several times over a short period before it really heats up in August. So look out for that. And as I've said before, again, it's going to be really fun here. we're going to really change things as we get closer to the beginning of the season. And it's going to be really fast. So we're going to go from these more long interviews to prepare us for the season to, okay, now that that's over, we've got about a week or two before the season begins. Now it's all prediction based. Now every show we do is just going to be, okay, today's show is going to be about, I don't know, like who knows? I don't know if we're going to do our own. We'll take a look at the AFC today. Next day is the NFC. The next day, we're going to look at Power Four, that sort of thing. And then all the way down the line to, okay, who's our championship picks in college football for each conference? Who is our sleeper? Who is our long shot for each conference? What are the playoff teams we have? Who's our championship sleeper? Same thing in the NFL. And then we're going to do the same thing with players. We're going to have an all-conference team from the Ourlads Football Network. We'll put together our official, here's our rookie of the year candidate, all sorts of cool stuff. Anyway, it's a lot of work and we're going to get to it. And we definitely hope you're going to be here as we do it. And Eric, I've got a Michigan State, just like, matter of fact, I just reached out to someone from Michigan State today. So, it's up to what happens is I put out right now, the way I've been doing it is I wait about a week and then I give everybody, especially now that it's starting to shrink a little bit with the interviews and the contacts that have responded, I go, and so let's say I've already reached out to my Michigan State guy today. Well, I'm going to give him until, say, the weekend. And if I don't hear from him, then I'm going to go back to the Michigan State library and I'm going to go, okay, here's someone, good traffic, good reputation. Let me contact him. And sometimes, the reason why it's so difficult to narrow down these lists is because you have so many different variables. You can like somebody that you feel is qualified but I don't have any contact information. I don't know how to get a hold of them. Then you can get a hold of them, but they don't respond. Now, sometimes they don't respond because they didn't get the message. That happens sometimes, both on X and on an email. Sometimes you just don't get it. Other times they're not interested. Sometimes it's because they would do it, but what they'll do is they'll check, because that's what happens a lot. It makes sense. They're going to check and see what other videos look like, what other interviews look like. And they may go, oh, wait a second, there's way too many questions here regarding things that I'm not prepared for. I'm not. I thought it was just going to be, we're going to talk for 20 minutes about 5 players or a coach or whatever. And that's the standard interview that these guys get. Like if it was Georgia Tech, like if I was some radio station or somebody that asked for an interview, the normal questions would be, all right, ask about the coach. I'll ask about the quarterback, Mendoza. Maybe I'll ask another question or two on offense or defense, maybe the schedule, and then I'll say goodbye. Whereas I'm going and putting pressure on these guys by saying, no, I want to know what's going on with the entire depth chart. And if you don't know the answer to these questions, then you're not qualified. And if you're not qualified and you don't want to appear because of that, then that's better for all of us. So there's a percentage of that. I don't know how big, but there's a percentage. So that makes it difficult. And then finally, we get the situation where we get to somebody, they're qualified, they get the message, they're available, and they respond, and we put it together. So sometimes it could take me an entire, like I can go an entire off season and not get a hold of anybody from Michigan State. I can go every week from here until the season and try to contact every possible Michigan State writer and podcaster that has some credibility and that has a contact number for me to reach. And I could end up with nothing. It happens. It's going to happen. I'm going to end up, there are going to be some teams that I'm going to reach out to that I'm not going to be able to get someone for. But for the most part, 138 teams, we're going to get a good number of them. So I hope Michigan State's one of them. I mean, I'm a huge Pat Fitzgerald fan. Loved him at Northwestern. I think this is an opportunity he deserves. And I think Michigan State is going to get things turned around at some point. The only doubts I would have about Fitzgerald at Michigan State would just be, I don't know if he's capable of coaching today in the portal. Now, he's going to have a very good general manager, a very good system in place. Maybe he does, because if he does, they're going to be really good at some point. But if he doesn't, if that's something that he's just not capable of, or let's say he just doesn't have the right people and it takes him a few years to figure it all out, then maybe it takes longer than anybody imagines, or maybe it just doesn't work out. And maybe Michigan State just is impatient. But we'll find out, I think, right away with that program this year. I think we're going to find out, because I think he's a heck of a coach. And now he's going to be in a situation where he is going to go from Northwestern, which is, they're like, their ceiling on average really in the Big Ten is kind of in the middle, on average. And every once in a while under Fitzgerald, like every couple of years, they would reach big heights. But at Michigan State, your ceiling really should be up at the very top nowadays with the portal. There should be no ceiling. You have no excuse. And now I know the problem I'm also hearing at Michigan State is that there's just a lot of issues going on within the main department. The main people in charge of the program, president, AD, that stuff is really in flux. And I'll be very interested to find out if we're able to talk to someone from Michigan State about how the football program is being affected by it. Because I know the basketball program has been affected. I mean, I hear Tom Izzo isn't very happy. But anyway, hopefully we'll be able to have someone on from Michigan State real soon, because I definitely want to talk Michigan State football for sure before the season begins. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks a lot for everybody tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, because that's the best way that you can check out every video that we have here all season and off season long. And also check us out with everything else, liking, sharing, and comments. Get the comments going. Let us know your opinion on if it's Memphis, Georgia Tech, or anything that we've talked about. Let us know your opinion. And also, if you have any questions, I can pass them along to any of our guests anytime we do a show, or if you have a question for me. So that's going to do it. I'll see everybody tomorrow. We're back to our 4 o'clock time slot for the next 3 days. And we'll talk some NFL and college football on the program tomorrow, right here on the Ourlads Football Network.